Okay, so we are recording. All right, folks. So I've been thinking about doing an interview style of video, doing interviews with other occultists. So we'll see how it goes, and if everything goes well, then there will be more coming. So before I introduce my guest, I kind of wanted to remind you all that I have an Etsy store, and I am connecting people with attunements, and I recently just added Vaviel, who is the angel of fascination. So he is able to bring out the best parts of you to make you more fascinating to others, and in general sense, and also if you were to direct it at someone in particular, maybe a new boss or a date temporarily, then you can becoming more fascinating. So let me introduce my guest. Uh, oh, and by the way, put a link in the description for that. So back to my guest. So this is Jade St. Clair. So Jade is an intuitive reader. She is a clairaudient, clairsentient, a musician, and occultist. She also makes magical jewelry. She's been a part of several psychic slash intuitive organizations. And now she does mostly private readings. So she has other services, including life coaching. So all that being said, Jade, you have been busy with all of your activities.
I have been.
So do you want to say anything else about um, your introduction? I kind of
Well,
given the basic blurb.
sure. I have been doing tarot since I was about 15 years old. I always have had a knack for being able to intuit things. It's something that I got from my mother, that she got from her grandmother, that she got from her grandmother. So it's kind of been passed on the maternal side for several generations. And I started off reading in a small college shop for money here and there. And I discovered that I really liked it and that it was something that I enjoyed connecting with people that way in particular. And it kind of beats the heck out of the small talk retail type of scene. So that's what I've been doing in my spare time for many, many years. And I'm fortunate enough now to be able to add things like the jewelry making and the life coaching. And I also do classes where I teach things like tarot and Lenormand and root readings. Uh, Lenormand is actually my specialty. It's a little bit different than tarot, but it's something that I probably will have classes on in the future. It's a little bit easier for a beginner. It's not quite as overwhelming, and the meanings are more clear cut in a Lenormand deck. So at some point, if people are interested in that, I'm always happy to answer questions or have a little one-on-one conversation about it. But that's basically it. You covered most of it. So right now, I'm just trying to get all my little side ventures going and make sure that they stay afloat.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So can you define for us, for those people who don't know, clairaudience, clairsentience, and I guess the rest of the clairs?
Sure. Well, most of the time, the first thing that people hear about is clairvoyance, and that is the ability to see things. Sometimes you actually see them in front of you. Sometimes it's out of the corner of your eye. Sometimes it's in your mind's eye. That is not a particular gift that I have in abundance. I've done it a few times on accident, but clairaudience and clairsentience are my two gifts. Clairaudience is the ability to hear, auditory. So clairaudience means that you hear things in your head. A lot of people receive what we may call psychic downloads in this way, where guides will speak to them, or gods or ancestors will speak to them, and they'll be able to get messages for themselves and for others. That is something that I'm very good at. Some people call that mediumship, but there's a little bit of a difference there. I hear my spirit guides talking to me all day long. So that's kind of a clairaudient thing. Clairsentience is when you sense things. So, and almost everybody has this one and probably uses it on a daily basis. It's when you walk up to someone and you get a feeling, or you're in a place and you get a feeling about it. Maybe you've walked up to someone and you can tell that they're having a bad day, or you can tell that they're angry, or you kind of sense their emotions. It's the same thing when you walk into, say, someone's house and you automatically pick up on the energy or the vibe of the house or the workplace or something of that nature. It's kind of associated for me with psychometry, which is the ability to touch objects and get a psychic impression from them. But almost everyone in this world is fluent in one of the clairs, and they just may not know it. I think that my main one is probably the clairaudience, but I'm pretty good with the clairsentience too.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing that. Since you mentioned spirit guides, um, can you tell the audience, I guess, what a muse is? Because we were talking about muses earlier, and how they may be similar or different than spirit guides.
Well, you know, when you're a child and you have an imaginary friend, some of the time, in fact, I believe most of the time, those are our presences because we as children are far more open and receptive to psychic energy than we are as adults. So that invisible friend that you had may have very well been a muse, may have been a spirit guide. A spirit guide is often, in my experience, felt on a far more intense level. And this is someone who literally gives you guidance. This is someone that you can speak to and you can say, I don't know what to do with this situation. Help me figure out what this sign means. Help me figure out where to go from here. And your spirit guide can kind of guide you and take your hand and also smack your hand if need be. Sometimes it's where mine want to pull their proverbial hair out with me. But a muse is more of someone that inspires you. It can be a presence, it can be a thought form, but it can also be a person. Like, let's say you look up to a particular actor or a musician. The energy of that person is something that you can bond with and that you can relate with, and you can use that creative force to help drive you in certain situations. Like, for example, say you're not a very extroverted person, but you're in a situation where you need to be extroverted. If you have an extroverted muse, you can kind of embody that energy and those qualities for a period of time and use the energy of that muse to project your own in a different way or in the way you see fit. I guess you could say the short answer is that muses are more of a thought form, an energetic thought form. I find that they come and go, they don't hang around very long, but your spirit guides are the ones that are with you until you either no longer need them or they transform in a different way. I personally have muses and spirit guides. One spirit guide in particular that talks to me all day long. It's more like a friend relationship with me than this mentor teacher type of thing. It's going to vary for everybody.
When you mentioned muses, it reminded me of how poets and people who write songs, even musicians, claim to have muses. For example, Jim Morrison said that Pam was his muse.
Yes, yes. And you even have somebody like, for example, I believe it's Beyonce that has this muse, Sasha Fierce, that she embodies when she goes on stage. And Sasha Fierce is not a real person, it's a thought form. And she calls upon that to be Beyonce. And I apologize if you hear my dog crying in the background. I'm not giving any attention right now, and she's a little upset. Hey, madam, stop crying.
I understand. I have a dog too. All right. So is there a connection between, since I just mentioned music anyway, between music and psychic abilities?
Well, I personally think so. And this may be because I am a musician, so I might be a little bit biased saying this. But I have always found that I receive messages through music for myself and for others very easily. Like a lot of times, for example, everybody has had this moment where you're driving in your car and you're having a thought about something. Should I take this job? Should I go out with this person? Should I do fill in the blank? And suddenly a song comes on. And the song will have lyrics that are like, go for it, do the thing, give it your all. Or maybe it'll say something like, caution, wary, danger. And you'll think to yourself, that's a coincidence that that song came on right at this moment. I feel like that's spirit sending you the message in the way that you will best understand it. And when you're in the car and you're driving, or you're just hanging out listening to music, that's a very easy way to receive a message from spirit or from your spirit guide. And music can also be used to express yourself spiritually. For example, I was a music major for a very long time in college, and I took a composition course that was required of me. All the rules and structure kind of freaked me out. And I found that suddenly I had this block and I couldn't compose and I couldn't write and I didn't know why. And this went on for years and years. Well, at some point last year, one of my spirit guides, who I also write about as a muse or character in some instances, I had been trying to write a scene with him for ages and ages and ages, and it would not come out onto the page. And this is not an experience I've ever had. So I downloaded a free composition software and I thought I would just try and see if I could put it on paper. And suddenly this whole entire composition came out of me. And it was a story and it told a story. And I had never done that in my entire life. And it was one of those things where I felt like he was telling me, this is how I want it told. And that's how it gets told. So it can be a medium if you can't express yourself with words. Sometimes you can express yourself with music. So where words often fail, music can speak.
Okay. You mentioned mediumship. Do you ever have, I guess, contact with departed or to tune into those that have passed on who were once incarnated into a body?
This is something that is a little difficult for me to do because I find it very taxing, but I can do it. And usually I will get one of my spirit guides to actually kind of speak through me because I have a pretty high level of empathy for that type of thing. And sometimes it's very difficult when you can feel the emotions of those that are on the other side. They read a little bit differently than they do on this side. So that is something that I can do. But it's not something that I like to do. I would rather get a message through cards or through even music, as we just mentioned. I can still get the message that way without directly tapping into the person. That takes a lot of time and a lot of preparation, and it does take a lot of energy. Some people, that's their thing, and they can do it very easily, but for me, it's quite difficult.
Mm. One of the things I think we talked about one time, because by the way, I didn't mention this in the introduction, but Jade is the intuitive psychic reader that I go to when I need a reading. So, one of the reasons why I put her on today was because I was getting messages because I haven't been doing a lot of readings or anything lately. And people were wondering, who do you go to? Well, that's who I go to. I go to Jade. So, as a side note, that's why Jade is here. But Jade, we talked about one time about you have the power of invisibility. So I want you to talk about that. This is an interesting topic.
This is such a weird thing. Well, even though I come across as someone who is extroverted, I am extroverted on my own terms. Like many spiritual people, I consider myself to be an introvert and I do like my quiet time. And one of my favorite things to do is take myself shopping, take myself on dates, take myself to do whatever I want to do. I don't necessarily want to have friends or my partner with me. I like to do things on my own. Invariably, when you do that, you will see someone that you know. And I used to laugh because if you've ever seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, the movie, there's a part where Dracula tells Nina, "Do not see me." And I thought to myself, does that really work? And I was pretty young when this happened. I was in my teens. So I kind of started thinking that when I would go somewhere and I saw somebody and I didn't want to talk to them, like it was one of my mom's friends or somebody that or a teacher, God forbid, that you just didn't want to see, I would think to myself, do not see me. And I would just kind of imagine that I was cloaked in the surroundings, that I matched my surroundings, and that the person would just walk right by me like I was a piece of furniture. And I was shocked that this worked. And I thought, well, this is a coincidence. Okay, that's silly. But the more I started doing it, the more I was able to it's like your energy is a light switch. And you as a person, you're always broadcasting energy. Your energetic signal is always out in the world. Well, what I imagine is that there's an on and an off switch, and that sometimes you can turn it off for a few minutes or a few seconds. It's not something I would want to do for ages and ages, but long enough for someone to walk past you. So I just imagine that I'm either cloaked in darkness, or that I'm in shadow, or that I match my surroundings. And it doesn't work every time, but 9 out of 10 times, the person will just walk past me as if I don't exist. And it is a very useful tool for introverts, or especially even if you're walking through the mall and you have those salespeople that come up to you and they want to get you over to their little kiosk to buy something. They very rarely bother me. And it's certainly not because I'm putting out go away energy. It's because I put out the most inoffensive, I don't exist, you don't see me, do not perceive me energy. And they just don't. So I think it's something that anybody can do, but you have to really believe that you can't be seen. Because when I doubt, oh no, they're definitely going to see me, they see me every single time. But if I'm really sure about it and I just confidently go about my business, they rarely see me.
Yeah, it reminds me of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So I am a Star Wars nerd.
Right. So Jedi Jade.
Yep, there's my Star Wars that says Hope on my arm.
So really, I guess in a practical sense, invisibility may be less about being completely not there, but then more about just not being noticed.
Right. Just kind of making your energy small so that it's not there. I think that whether people realize it or not, you're attracted to energy, especially familiar energy. So if you happen to see your aunt that you don't want to see, of course she's connected to you in some way because that's family. So if you kind of just calm yourself down and just take a step back, I find it works best if you don't actively try to hide. If you just continue what you're doing as if the person is not there, and then they continue as if you are not there.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. When you project your energy out, people can notice that whole a game that some of us played when we were younger about being on the bus and staring at somebody's neck or the back of their head and making them look type of thing. So it has to be the opposite of that.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. It's very similar to that type of game.
So Jade, you were telling me also about that you recently went to some estate sales and had some interesting experiences.
Well,
you might want to start with what an estate sale is,
yeah,
just in case.
I was going to say, let me explain that. An estate sale is when a person has either moved on, they've crossed over, they're deceased, however you want to say that, and they contact a company to sell their assets. Or sometimes people have estate sales when they are moving to another country or to another town, or possibly moving into a retirement community. Basically, it's when they hire a company to sell off some or all of their assets. And I find that estate sales are really good for practicing what I like to call searching for energetic imprints. And I also like to try to kind of up my psychometry game. And psychometry is the ability, like I said before, to touch an object and to have an energetic reading on that object. Like maybe you'll get an impression of the person, or maybe you will see possibly a scene from that person's life. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. You never really know. But I do like to walk around these homes and see if I can pick up psychic impressions, touch the things that are around, and see if I'm right. Because eventually you can research, or you can ask the estate sale person, you can talk to people, and you can find out if you got it right. If this person was, say, a ballet dancer, and you get the impression that every morning they would get up and listen to some Tchaikovsky before they went to work or before they went to their rehearsal space. Or maybe this person was a teacher, and you will get impressions of lesson plans or their daily routine, or how they would sit in the classroom and speak to their students. You can pick up these types of things, or you can even pick up one of the less pleasant ones that I picked up was there was a woman who had died unexpectedly in her home, and she had passed away in the bedroom that I walked into. And when I put my hand on the bed, I got a sense of she wasn't ready to go, and that it was very sudden, and it frightened her, and she still wasn't quite sure what was going on now that she's crossed over to the other side. And I heard people chattering about how this lady had been in perfect health. Nobody knew that she even had any type of medical problems, and she had a stroke very suddenly and just passed away in her sleep and wasn't ready for that. Well, it was interesting to know that I had walked in and I had picked that up. And it's not the most pleasant thing, because sometimes when you're at an estate sale and you're touching people's things, you do get some sad or some heavy memories. And when I purchase something from an estate sale, usually I will ask the person if I can take it home with me. I will ask the spirit, or even just the energy of the house, may I take this home with me? And I will promise to take care of it and to treat it well. And if I get a yes response, I will take it home with me. Sometimes those things, they don't want you to have them. And I've gotten responses where I've picked up something and asked if I could have it, and I've gotten a no, and I've left it where it was. So there are all kinds of things in my home that have belonged to others. This chair that I'm sitting in actually came from an estate sale, and I did ask the occupants if I could have these two chairs that match my terrible yellow walls so well with their yellow cushions. And I did receive a yes, so I put them in my car and came home with them. But I have touched lamps and jewelry. Jewelry's a really big one. Sometimes you don't want to wear someone else's jewelry if they've had a tough time, because that energy can kind of bleed into your own. But estate sales are really great for testing your psychic nuances and seeing just what you can pick up and what you can read.
Have you ever come across something that you touched, or an object that you perceived had possibly a mischievous or destructive spirit attached to it, and you were like, no, I'm definitely not taking that home?
Oh, yeah. I recently went to one. It was this one that I bought the chair from, actually. And there was a small child-sized chair sitting in the corner. And when I walked up to the chair, it was very intricately carved, and I was interested in it. I wanted to buy it because I'd never seen anything like it. I put my hand on that chair, and I immediately got "you better leave me alone" vibes. I got vibes like this was either in a home where there was a lot of negative energy, or it was a chair where someone was put when they had been, like a child had been naughty or something, that this was the quintessential chair where this person had been put, or where they put themselves when they were in a bad mood. And I thought about the song "Angry Chair" by Alice in Chains. And the chair really did feel angry. And I remember this woman asked me if I was going to buy it. And I said no. And I wanted to tell her, you shouldn't either. but I got the vibe off of her that she would think I was nuts if I said that. So I watched her purchase this chair, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, she's going to get that home. She's going to have a bad time. So even if I really, really like something, if I get a no-no vibe, I will leave it alone. And it does happen.
Okay, cool. You told me one time about a possible interdimensional being in your living room. I'd like to hear more about that.
Okay, well, I still don't know if I was crazy or not, but I was walking through the living room one night and I kind of wasn't paying attention to what was going on, and I physically ran into something, and it was really close to my face, and I looked and I saw a solid gray form. And like I said, I'm not clairvoyant. I don't see things. And it didn't feel like a spirit. It looked startled for a second, like, you weren't supposed to see me. And I was really startled. And all of this took place in less than 2 seconds, but it felt like a very long time. And I kind of just looked the other way and looked back, and it was gone. But I had the sense that something had been wandering around, not meaning any harm, not, just kind of walking around, seeing what was going on. And I wasn't supposed to be able to see it. And I had a moment where I did. And it's like its cloaking device came off, if you want to get nerdy. So I don't know if this was something from another dimension. I didn't get the feeling that it was a spirit. It didn't have any type of hostility towards it. The energetic field that it gave off was simply plain curiosity and very nonchalant, non-threatening vibes. And usually with spirits, yeah, there are some non-threatening ones, but if you see them and they don't want you to see them, they usually get pretty angry. So this one just seemed like, whoops, pardon me. And that was the end of it.
Well, you were kind to turn away to save him any further embarrassment. So one of the big things that you do, tell us about Magickal Jewelry.
Well, I do make a whole bunch of different types of jewelry. I'm very careful with what I make. This is actually something that I made, and I've picked up a few things that I'm working on. This is one of my favorite ones. This was one of the first ones that I made to actually represent this spirit guide of mine, because he is associated with the ocean. And I very carefully picked out all the little pieces. Like, there's some prinite in here and some aquamarine and some apatite. And then there's this really cool stuff called mermaid glass, like this little bracelet here that changes colors. I very purposefully use certain numbers of stones, certain patterns with stones, and certain stones themselves for different things. Like, this is one that I did a couple of days ago. This is snakeskin carnelian and red jasper. And when I made this one, I am a fire sign, so I put a lot of fire energy into it when I made it. And I made it very specifically in 1, 2, 3, big one, 1, 2, 3, big one, and then 1, 2, so it would equal 5, and then 2 big ones. So I have a pattern in a sequence to the things that I make. So anytime, if you get jewelry from me, I didn't just put colors together because I thought they were pretty. I put them together because I think that this piece will call to one person in particular, and that it will have been made just for them. Like, this is another one that I haven't finished yet that I'm working on that has tiger's eye and some gold obsidian and whatnot. But again, I made the pattern with there's 7 black beads and then 5 tiger's eye, 7 black beads and 5 tiger's eye. And I did that specifically because those were the numbers that called to me when I was making to it. The stones that I pick up, I choose for very specific reasons too. Like, when I looked at this agate pendant right here, it reminded me of an energetic wave. And I think that when I make this piece, it's going to kind of start big and move outward. so that the person who wears it will be able to project their energy, because that's what I think this piece is trying to say, to project grounded energy. So anything that I do, I always have a story that goes along with it. And I pick the stones and the pattern and the materials that I use very carefully, because I want the person that wears it to have a good experience. When you put something on that Jade St. Clair has made, I want you to put it on and feel good. I don't want you to put it on because it's pretty and forget about it. I want you to have that energy all day long. I also do custom orders. So let's say somebody says, I'm having a hard time with this particular aspect of my life, like maybe I have bad luck with relationships, or I'm trying to get this particular job, or I'm trying to increase my prosperity. I will create a piece just for that person with that energy. I will put that energetic intent into it, so that when the person wears it, it's kind of like a beacon to help them attract what they want. Of course, one of the most important pieces of thought when it comes to jewelry is that you have to believe that it works also. You have to believe that it's going to draw to you or keep away from you the thing that you are trying to do. So there's a movie called Practical Magic, and they talk about how any symbol has power because you believe in it. And there's a point where there's a demon from the other side or an evil guy from the other side, and the man that is a sheriff holds up his star, his badge, and it keeps the evil presence away. The presence reaches for it and it burns a star into his hand. And the belief there is that he believed it would protect him, so it did. So that is what I create jewelry for, is for protection and for prosperity, and even for love, for balance, for grounding, any of those things. And no two pieces that I do are alike. So if anybody gets one piece from me, there's not going to be anybody else in the world that has that piece, because it's going to be just for that moment or for that person.
I see. That makes it very special then. All right. Well, we need to kind of wrap it up. So, Jade, how can people contact you if they want a reading or jewelry or any other services that you provide?
Well, my jewelry store on Etsy, I'm just in the process of redoing it. So I only have about 5 things on there. Etsy's not exactly user friendly for posting things sometimes, but it is Gulf Coast Siren, like when you think of the South and you think of the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf Coast Siren, Siren. If you want a reading, I am Jade St. Clair Tarot at gmail.com, all one word. I also have a Facebook page. I'm trying to get into the 21st century here. And I have a Facebook page that is also Jade St. Clair Tarot. You can find me there. And I have a TikTok that I just started, and that is also Jade St. Clair. It might be Jade St. Clair Tarot. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head, but I don't think there's any other Jade St. Clairs out there. So if you type in my name, you can probably find me on Facebook, on TikTok, and Gulf Coast Siren on Etsy. I think Mark said he would put some links in the description, or put some information in the description.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any closing comments that you have?
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to use me as your guinea pig for your first occultist. That means a lot to me. I've never actually done any type of interview like this before, so it's a first for me too. So I had a really good time, and Mark is super kind, and his energy is very calming, and he's got a lot of ancient energy, I would say. So it's always a pleasure to read for him and to discuss attunements and Reiki and things of that nature. So I appreciate you having me on here, and hopefully we'll get to do this again sometime.
All righty, definitely. Okay. Well, folks, as she said, I will put some links in the description if you want to contact her for her services. And that is about it. You all have a good weekend. Please subscribe and like, and I will see you in a future video.